Welcome to Maintainer's Garage. I'm Bags. Today I'm going to be doing a follow-up on my stereo system I put in my C6 Corvette. I actually put it in right at the beginning of the year. I know my video came out about a month after I installed it, so it's now August. I've had this stereo system installed complete for over 6 months, and I've been driving around and tweaking it, doing a couple things. One of the biggest things that was a problem was I thought the C6 was exactly like the C5 when it came to passenger legroom. It's not. It's a little different. Why does that matter? Well, I stuck my amp right back here behind the passenger seat just like I did on my C5, and it encroached more in the legroom than I thought it would. I didn't take good measurements. I did some measurements and I was like, okay, yeah, this seems about right. Well, it's not the same. What does that mean? That means that when my wife sat over here, she wasn't comfortable. And when I was a passenger and she was driving, I wasn't comfortable. So I had to change it up. I didn't like it. And so that's kind of what this update's also about, is letting you know I relocated the amp from behind the passenger seat to mounted to the sub box. Being attached to the sub box made the most sense for me. I may end up adding a false piece of wood on top of it, carpeted, of course, to hide the wiring. I just have Nomex on there now. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Big fan of the sub box, Subthump C6 dual 8-inch subwoofer box. Like it. Good sound. Perfect. I like the partition. Fits well, and with the top being able to be stored in here, really good fit. On this amp, what did it take to move it? Obviously, I had to move all the wiring. I didn't have a long enough ground cable, long enough power cable. I ran new wiring for those. I didn't want to splice a frickin' 4-gauge cable for my amp. Nope. I know. I redid some stuff, but you know, the power and ground couldn't be spliced. I wanted uninterrupted signals for those. Now, speaking of signals, the speaker wire I spliced. It's yeah. So I figured that was okay. Just spliced it, ran it up the center console, or ran it up the center section of the car here, and it comes out under the box. That's where this Nomex snake skin polyester wrap, whatever you want to call it, it's split sleeve, and just covered it up. I like the way it looks. It looks okay. Power and ground, I ran up the pillar back here, had it come out, and I've got it routed under here. I was going to have it come out under the box. I just didn't like the way it looked. I mean, those are thick cables. I thought about having them come across here. That's why I said I may do a false cover for this. I may not. So far, this hasn't bothered me at all. It hadn't bothered my wife, and because of the Nomex sleeving, all the wiring's protected with whatever we put here. The RCA cables come up here, and apparently I didn't realize, like, my subwoofer wire or subwoofer speaker wire, you can see right there, didn't do a great job apparently. And I got Nomex on the RCA cables. I really like the way this worked out. I like where it ended up. I wish it was back here, truthfully, but with the amount of legroom that was lost, it just wasn't going to work. So this is my next best solution. There might be a better one. This one is the one I figured out the best for me. One thing I will say I did with the wiring here, I put a couple of these self-sticky zip tie holders there, but I actually didn't use the sticky part. I ran a screw and drilled it down and secured it that way. One thing I found is this white foam, even if you peel the backing off this, you still see the white edges. When it was fully installed like that, I hated it. So I painted them. I painted the back of this all black, so that way when you're looking down the side, you can't see any color variation whatsoever. I'm very happy with the Dayton Audio speakers I put back here. The sound I'm getting is good. I mean, could I have used a better speaker and got better sound? Possibly. I'm happy with what it is. If you didn't see the video, I did not use a coax. I used just a 5 1/4 inch mid bass from Dayton Audio 4 ohm. Very happy with how that turned out. The head unit I really like, and I like all the adjustments in it. So now that we've covered the sub box, the amp and the rear speakers. We'll talk about the front speakers and the head unit. I like this Kenwood unit a lot. The one thing I will say that does happen on it a good bit is it ends up with a lot of fingerprints, but that is fairly easy. It's easy to clean. Damp paper towel, done, clean. I like the look. I very much like the sound, and the Android Auto works very well. It is plug-in. There's a cable right here, so it is plug-in with my phone. It's not wireless, it's plug-in, but it works very well. The display is very vibrant. Even with the top off, the sun glare is not bad at all, and the face of this you can tilt to adjust the glare so you're not getting flashed in the face by the reflection all the time. They did a really good job with that. The tunability, and what I mean by that is the all the speaker crossover equalizer. I love the EQ, and you can set it up for each source. So the radio can have a different EQ than the USB, can have a different EQ than Pandora, can have a different EQ than Spotify. I really enjoy that, and the adjustability of that is fantastic. And if you want to get into, time alignment and all that, you can play with that if you like. I personally don't do that. The sound effect I did start playing with, and I did like it. The sound stage, what I mean by the word sound stage, is where it sounds like the sound is coming from in the Corvette. The front speakers, which are Morel's, Maximo's 6.5 components, and I love those. They sound great. The tweeter is not, very high. It's in the door here, so it's a little low. So I adjusted it to middle, and that really brightened it up. And really, for my personal preference, and this is definitely your mileage may vary because everybody's different, but just having all of this volume offset, I'm never going to mess with any of that. I'm never going to try to play with this stuff to the degree that some other folks will. I just got it to where I liked it, played with a couple things, and was like, you know what, good, I like it. But overall, super happy with the head unit. The one thing I will say that you just saw there, sometimes hitting these things because of this raised panel can be a little bit of a chore. That's why I always end up typically just touching it with my thumb because it just works out better. All the connectivity you could ever want in here. No complaints. And the backup camera, and I'll have to put a link because I have no idea who I use for the backup camera anymore. Works very well. I'm happy with it. Gives me a good view. Works perfectly. I'm very happy with the entire system I installed. Clearly, when you spend money on something, you want to be happy with it, and doesn't always work out that way. Fortunately, I did enough research beforehand to try to get the best things, components that I thought would work for me. Now, I had the Morel components in my previous Corvette, so that was a no-brainer. That was simple. The amp, gazillion good reviews, no-brainer, simple. The sub box was, so I had to put a box in and lose some trunk space, but I wanted to be able to store the top, so that worked out. The head unit, again, ton of reviews all over the internet, very good, that worked out great. The rear speakers, that was the biggest gamble overall for this with me, due to the fact that I know on my previous Corvettes when I did it, when I put coaxial speakers back there, the tuning, dulling the highs down because they're so close to your head to not overpower the fronts was always a chore. With just putting a 5 1/4 inch mid bass in there, that really made the tuning aspect of adjusting the front and rears levels really simple and worked out very well. I'm very happy with how that went. And I used 2 Skar Audio 8-inch subwoofers. They were fairly inexpensive. They had decent reviews, and that's the easiest speaker in this to change, so I gambled on those. They were freaking $80 for the 2 of them. So far, so good. The sound is pretty good, and it's been working out. And the backup camera worked out great. So overall, this has all worked out for me. Now, some people like the factory head unit, and I had the Bose system. There's quite a few people that say the non-Bose system actually sounds better than the Bose system. I haven't been able to compare the two, but that's what a lot of people say. I just was never going to be happy with the factory navigation and stereo. It wasn't ever going to work for me. If it works for you and you're happy, great. More power to you, because that just means that's one thing that you don't have to mess with, and that's always a good thing. That's my follow-up on my stereo system after 6 months of ownership, and after doing the upgrade and everything, and I'm hugely happy. So I just wanted to follow up with that, show you that I ended up having to change the amp location. Thanks for watching Maintainer's Garage, and have a great day.